Hey guys, it's Ian Preston here on my second channel, Ian Preston Reviews, and welcome back to a movie review. I haven't done this in a while. I'm doing this because it's a special day because it's the 40th anniversary of this film, The Breakfast Club, and it's starring Judd Nelson, Emilio Estevez, Molly Ringwald, Paul Gleason, um, Anthony Michael Hall, Ali Sheedy, John Capellos, and yeah, and written and directed by John Hughes, and Jackie Birch is the what do you call it, the casting person. But this film is really enjoyable. It is a classic. The music's great, and music by Simple Minds and Wang Chung. Um, but anyway, this show is technically takes place on Saturday, March 24th, 1984, in Shermer High School, Shermer, Illinois. And apparently, five high school kids get dropped off. Well, except for John Bender, he walks. But anyway, apparently they all have to go in onto the Saturday detention for whatever it is they did wrong. And eventually, at the beginning, it says there's a little message from David Bowie: the way you spit on these people or something, and these kids know what they're going through or something. And I like how after it shows, it goes like glass shattering and the I like that. But anyway, um, let's get into this. Vernon, played by Paul Gleason, rest in peace to him, by the way, assigns them an assignment, or a, what do you call it, an essay, an 1,000-word essay. Oh yeah, and the shirt has all these 80s movies on here. These cool classic 80s films. I'm such a fan of these films. But anyway, and yeah, and Weird Science will be 40 years old today. This year too. But anyway, um, he assigns them a 1,000-word essay describing to them who they think they are, and he doesn't want a single word repeated 1,000 times. And apparently, John Bender gets another Saturday after he asks him if Barry Manilow knows he raided his closet, and Bender starts acting up a little bit. He tries to take a leak in the on the floor, but then eventually, him and him and Molly Ringwald and Emilio Estevez kind of argue a little bit, and they shout at him, and Paul Gleason's like, "Hey, what's going on in there?" And they argue a little bit. They talk about some stuff, and then Bender screws with the screw in the door. When he said "don't screw around," he should have said "don't screw around." It's funny. And then eventually, Vernon gets Andrew Clark to help him with the door to hold it open when he tried something with the chair, but it didn't work. And next thing you know, um, John Bender insults Vernon a couple times. Then he gets more detentions, 7 more detentions. Actually, yeah, 8 actually, because including the one earlier with the Barry Manilow question. But anyway, when Anthony Michael Hall's character said it, of how much there is, and then Vernon tells him, "You stay out of it. Shut up, Pee Wee." And then he's like, "2 months, I got you." And one of my favorite quotes in this is, "If he gets up, we all get up. It'll be anarchy." Or, "Young man, have you finished your paper?" Or, "Don't mess with the bull, young man. You'll get the horns." "For 2 months, I got you, Bender. You're not fooling anyone. The next screw that's gonna fall out is gonna be you." But anyway, time goes on. We learn a little bit about these kids' lives, and apparently Brian being a virgin was like his own private business. Claire, Molly Ringwald's character, says that her parents just use her to like to get at each other or something. I don't know. And Ali Sheedy's character Allison doesn't really say much. And eventually, what else? John Bender and Andrew, Melo Estevez's character, they get into a fight after Bender tries to harass Claire. And fun fact, Judd Nelson got so into his character, he kind of did harass Molly Ringwald off camera for real, and John Hughes got so mad he almost fired Judd Nelson. But anyway, eventually they get to go to the bathroom, and then Carl, John Capellos' character, comes in, and talks to them a little bit. He's the janitor, and he said the clock is a little faster, and they start whistling, and then eventually they had to get Andrew and Allison go get drinks because eventually I guess they have to have lunch in the library and not the cafeteria, which Vernon is so against that. But anyway, when he's going and Bender's going, eventually Allison finally speaks when Andrew and her are in the hallway getting drinks because she said she drinks vodka whenever. But anyway, Bender eventually talks about mocks Brian and his family or something, and then does an impression, and then Bender does an impression of his family, which Andrew doesn't believe. And then he shows a little burnt thing on his arm, and he said, "This is what you get when after you spill paint in the garage." And then he starts throwing a fit or something, acting like a monkey, caged a monkey or something. And Andrew thinks he lies about everything anyway. And I like how Brian's like, "Is that for real?" And Bender's like, "You want to come over sometime?" He's like, "You want to come over sometime?" But anyway, they ended up walking in the hallway, and they when they see Vernon, they start running, but then Bender sacrifices himself by going, yelling and singing, running through the hallway. Vernon finds him while the others can get back to the library, and then eventually Vernon has to go. Vernon takes Bender to the faculty. The faculty room where he has to stay there for the rest of the day, and threatens him and tries to fight him, which Bender's too scared to. But then he walks to the ceiling, tells a weird, funny joke, falls to the ceiling to get to the library. Vernon tries to see what happened, and then they start they cover for him, and they learn a little bit about each other. How Allison's parents ignores her, and how eventually Carl and Vernon in the basement talk with each other, and Carl says, "You've changed, Vern, not you. You've changed, not the kids." Vernon always says Vernon says that this is a thought that wakes him up in the middle of the night. He thinks these kids are gonna take care of him. But anyway, we have a little group therapy session with the kids. They're thinking about what's gonna happen on Monday morning. Claire shows them a trick she could do, and Andrew tearfully talks about what his father does to him and how regretful what he did to how he put Larry something's buns together. He's like, "How do you apologize for something like that?" And Bender said, "I think your old man and my old man should get together and go bowling." And we learn about why Brian is in, and eventually Bender roasts Claire, making her cry. Brian eventually starts crying because then he reveals how he got in trouble because he had a gun in his locker, a flare gun in his locker. He was gonna commit suicide from I guess because his parents are like abusing him, making him try to get good grades or something, and he just couldn't, and he thinks he can't have another B, which I think was just really sad for poor Brian. But eventually they start laughing because the flare gun did go off. Which can a flare gun kill someone? But anyway, he said the elephant was destroyed, and they start laughing. And Allison reveals that she didn't do anything. She had nothing better to do. So with that, they started dancing to "We Are Not Alone." I can't remember who the singer was, but she did a good job singing it. Shout out to her. And they jammed out to "We Are Not Alone" in the library for a little bit. And then Bender walked through the ceilings. Crawled through the ceilings and back to the faculty closet safely and sound without getting caught by creepy Vernon. I'm not gonna lie, Vernon is really creepy, and you don't want to screw with him, and you don't want to get caught with him. He's scary. But the good news is Bender did not fall through the. I like when he's walking through the ceiling. I like that music when he's walking through the ceiling. And then eventually they realize the writing their papers is pointless. But then Claire gives Allison a makeover. Eventually Claire goes and makes out with Bender in the closet, and then Brian writes the paper, and then Andrew and Allison starting a relationship because of how different Allison looks in a good way. And then Brian punches himself like that after he writes the paper. And then as they're leaving, they say bye to the janitor. And then Bender's like, see you next Saturday. And the janitor smiles as the kids leave. And as they leave, and it looks like John Hughes is driving the car that Brian is in, because it looks like his dad's played by John Hughes. The director makes his cameo appearance in this. And then Allison and Andrew kiss each other goodbye, and then Allison takes a patch from Andrew's jacket, and then Claire and Bender kiss, and then and then he takes an earring from her ear and puts it on his ear. And Vernon reads the paper that says, "Dear Mr. Vernon, we accept the fact that we have to sacrifice a Saturday in detention for whatever it is we did wrong, but we think you're crazy. We think you're crazy to make us write an essay of telling us who you think we are. See us as we want, as you want to see us. In simplest terms, the most convenient definitions." And then Brian says, "You see us as a brain." And then Andrew says, "As an athlete." And then Allison says, "In a basket case." "A princess," is Claire. "And a criminal," said Bender. "Does that answer your question?" Brian says. "See, yours sincerely, The Breakfast Club." And then the film ends as Bender's walking on the football field with the sunset behind him and him going like that. The credits start rolling. But anyway, it's a heck of a movie. Puts a big smile on my face. Yes, it gives 2 thumbs up for the movie. Anyway, that was my review to The Breakfast Club, I think, for its 40th anniversary. And man, it's such a great film. But anyway, John Hughes did a wonderful job directing this. Too bad he's passed away, though. But yeah. Anyway, if you guys are new to this channel, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, check out Ian Preston, my first channel, link will be in the description, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out and love y'all.